Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel is here with us, fresh from the Trump inauguration.
Great to see you,
And
Harry.
here to celebrate Brexit's
Of course.
5th birthday.
Sovereignty, that's what it was
How's
all
it
about.
going?
I mean, look, Brexit, you know this, Harry. I think you came on the bus a few times, didn't
Oh,
you?
yeah, I was there.
On the campaign. I've been a long-standing
You have?
supporter,
You used to work for the
campaigner,
referendum
advocate,
party.
you name it. I've always believed in Britain's freedom and sovereignty.
Has it worked?
Of course it has.
Really?
Of course it has.
'Cause
I'm sure you've written a few things about
I
trade
know,
deals,
I mean,
all this kind of stuff.
a little bit, but like it's, you know, it's
Look,
picking
first of
so
all,
far.
let me just say this to you. First of all, you will remember the excitement around Brexit, OK? I've just
Sure.
come from America, so just capture that. Hope,
Yeah.
opportunity, aspiration, global
Donald.
Britain, all that kind of stuff. So we captured that and we definitely delivered on Brexit. Because Brexit was all about the future of our country, where we would be going, not looking backwards all the time, getting rid of EU regulation from our statute, from our legislative books, all that kind of stuff. That has happened. 73 free trade deals. That has happened and is still
73
going.
free trade deals, really?
So, well, look at the Trans-Pacific deal as well. That's enormous.
Yeah,
Look at the work with Australia.
But it's
look
not
at the work that's
exactly
taken
the
place with India and
sunlit
America.
uplands that were promised. Where is Singapore on Thames? Where's the massive deregulation? Where's the Big Bang?
Deregulation has happened, come
It's
on.
sort of. But I mean,
Well, I'd like more Big Bang, I can tell you
Well,
that.
exactly.
I'm
So,
a product
but
of the 1980s.
isn't that the problem,
The
then?
Thatcher-Lawson axis is exactly where we should
Isn't that
be.
the problem in the fact that you are the Shadow Foreign Secretary, you're a former Home Secretary, you were at the heart of the last government, and yet you have walked away disappointed that it didn't go far enough?
So let me tell you this. I was at the heart of the Brexit government. I think governments since then have completely not been in that space.
But even
They've been
Boris's
unprofessional.
government slightly sort of dicks around it, didn't it?
In what way?
Well, you know, we essentially, we didn't, you know, we
got Brexit done,
You
withdrawal
got
agreement.
Brexit done, but we're essentially
We were
in
fighting
a
the
weird
people.
we're in a weird halfway house that we're not quite really out of the EU's orbit, and we're not quite
Actually, I don't think
we're
that's
not
right,
quite
Harry.
the nimble, we're not quite the nimble sort of plucky, you know, buccaneering
I don't
Britain
think
that we
that's
were
true.
promised.
I don't think that's at all true. I mean, look at what's been done, what's been achieved.
Go on, fine.
You can only
Give us
do
the-
that
give us-
because
give
we've
us the
left
top
the
three.
EU.
Give us the top three Brexit
100%
wins.
right, VAT. Look at the way in which, you know, so package holidays don't suffer from that whole tax anymore in the way in
These are
which
slim
it did.
pickings.
Well, it matters to your readers and your viewers.
It does,
okay?
but also
It's
they
a
were
pound in
they
their
were
pocket,
promised
Harry. Come on, stop
a
being
different.
part of this metropolitan liberal elite, okay?
I think that's
It
the first time anyone's come on this show and
pockets.
called me a member of the metropolitan liberal elite.
But-
You can't just steal my line.
It's true. Your readers, your viewers care about the pound in their pocket.
They do,
that
and
is
the pound in their
absolutely
pocket,
crucial.
yeah.
And it's diminishing under this rotten Labour government. On top of that, don't forget, it was Labour, the very people, the people that are running the country right now that were the Brexit blockers. They were campaigning for second referendums. They were trying to take away the
They were.
people's
We're
right
going to
to
get into
vote.
them. We're going to get into them in a moment, and we're going to talk about the future relationship with the EU, which is looking pretty dubious right now. But first of all, I want to talk about Brexit wins. We were promised two things: take back control and get in grip on
Well,
immigration.
we're in control of our laws.
And
We are
that's-
in control
so
of our laws, right?
We are. And what did you do with those? What did you do with these?
We
that
have
control?
deregulated, and on our laws, it's given us the freedom to do trade deals around the world.
You
we can have
also-
bilateral discussions in a way in which we could not. And I can tell you this, Harry, because I have been in previous governments, before Boris's Brexit government, we were totally restricted on any bilateral discussions around the world. So you speak about Singapore on Thames, we couldn't speak to one of our greatest counterparts and allies. So, for example, America on greater security, you know, India on trade, on, you know, all sorts of good things that we were trying to do. We were prevented from doing so because of our membership of the EU. So we can't sniff at that. That is very significant.
So,
the talks have started.
We'll chalk that up as a win. But there's also been some downsides since.
Tell me.
Well, let's have a look at the graph. Net migration.
Yeah.
Look at that. That was on your watch. Where exactly on that graph were you the Home Secretary in charge of Britain?
So, well, we should first of all recognise that we ended free movement.
Yeah, you ended free movement for Europeans and you threw the borders open to the rest of the world, and the graph...
We
had
always
gone-
said that in Brexit, Harry.
No,
You know-
come on.
you
That
always
is
knew.
not
So-
fair. You did not say we're going to hit 1.2 million net
No, we
migrants.
did not say that in
Allow
terms of
1.2 million people into the country
So let me finish.
in 1 year.
So let me finish. Brightest and the best come into our country. People on skilled
Is
work
that the
routes
brightest
and
and the best?
visas.
Is that the brightest
We've
and the
always
best?
said, well, look at it's legal migration, Harry. It's legal. People who come here and work and contribute to our economy. Brightest and the best. Look at the points-based immigration system. For the first time ever, Harry, let me give you some facts.
Go on.
For the first time ever, we have a points-based immigration system, counting people in and out. You can turn off the immigration system at any stage in terms of what our economy needs and doesn't need. You know, the government should have done more, absolutely, on skills and training Brits.
Did every one of those 1.2 million people that flooded into the country in the last 3 years, did they need to come here?
So what would you say to the Ukrainians that are in our country?
That's 300,000.
It is now
tops.
300. What would you say to the BNOs? What would you say also to people that came here through
Come on, you're fudging the numbers there.
I'm not fudging the numbers. I'm telling you now.
300,000 Ukrainians on a temporary fix is not 1.2 million people coming to this country to take jobs that you promised were going to go to Sunreaders and people who voted for Brexit.
Those are skilled visas, Harry. We made it quite clear. These are people that work, you know, skilled visa routes, all the skills in terms of NHS, people that are working in our National Health Service. We had something called a pandemic. You remember health and social care visas
graph
as well. I'm not fine with it. I haven't said that.
Would you like to apologise to all the people that voted Brexit for the fact that you misled them in saying we're going to take back control of our borders and then you threw them open and let in millions of people?
That is totally distortionary and that's not true. And to be quite frank, we made it quite clear it would be people from the rest of the world, people with skills, based on our economy. And I think people should apologise for those who are saying that actually...
You would like an apology?
People in the pandemic came here, health and social care visas. What would have happened to our NHS? Are we now saying, are you and others saying we don't need those people in our NHS?
So what do you do to fix it?
So now that's a wider issue.
That's what we're here for the big issues,
Yeah. I'm happy to discuss that. I've always said we should have had a labour market strategy.
Yep.
You know, much more in terms of training and investment in British people. There was something called levelling up. Where's that levelling up agenda gone? You know, investing in parts of the country, investing in growing the economy across the regions.
It's going to take years and years.
Harry,
to
this
do
stuff
that,
takes time. There's no silver bullet to this. And by the way, if there was, it would have been done by now.
Of course, I think that's a point I've been making to every Labour person that's been sitting in that seat. But at the same time, though, can you see why people are angry? Can you see why all the charts saying that if there's a Brexit referendum tomorrow, we'd go back in? Because
I don't believe that.
The country was sold. You sold the country apart.
Seriously, that is not true. That is absolutely not true. It really isn't.
So
we are able to sell more goods and services across the world. That's good for our country in terms of more jobs here as well. We should be talking up some of those Brexit dividends and what it's done for our economy in the long run. Plus, let me just say something else to you. We have a 300 billion trading relationship with the United States of America. We're not in government. The onus now should be on this government to get their act together to build upon those foundations and actually grow our economy in a way in which we have more trading friends and partners around the world. And one of the biggest frustrations is, quite frankly, we've got a government that is run by lefties that campaigned against Brexit and simply did not believe in Britain's prospects around the world.
Britain, it's also we can all believe, but like actually in reality, we're going to move on in a second. But I'm animated by this point. We all believed it was going to be great, but the Tories fundamentally failed to deliver on the Brexit promises, and that's why you got spanked. That's why you got spanked in the election.
Well, there's a load of reasons, in my view, why that happened, OK? Lots of reasons. And I've said this before. One of the primary reasons is because we decided to embark upon a merry-go-round of changing ourselves in government, changing positions, changing leaders. And I tell you what, the country wanted. They wanted consistency and delivery all the way through.
And you think that importing a city the size of Birmingham in every 3 years was not part of that reason that you got?
Look. Things have changed. Of course it was. It's absolutely crystal clear. One of the other reasons, though, Harry, I think, let's not conflate things. There's a massive distinction between legal migration and illegal migration.
Sure, and our readers and viewers are sophisticated enough to know that. We're talking about legal migration now, which was on your watch.
And it's still happening, right? It is all still happening. There are controls in the points-based immigration system. Nobody wants to talk about that, and they should talk about that.
I think, well, you know what?
There were plans in place, as well, in terms of bringing down those numbers. But you can only bring them down once you've got more people in the United Kingdom working in those sectors where we don't need people from overseas coming in. Let me just give you one other example, because this was a hot topic. I reckon you wrote about this as well.
I write about everything.
So the amount of lobbying that took place for example, pork butchers, for turkey, turkey pluckers, crisis at Christmas if we don't have enough turkey pluckers.
The sort of blessed are the abattoir workers.
So there you go. So that's all down to needing more people in our economy.
Can we seriously in this country not train someone to throttle a turkey?
Of course you can.
So why haven't we done it? Why didn't you do it? Why do we have to import turkey throttlers?
To be quite frank, I mean, I was doing sort of other, national security issues and the job of the Home Secretary. That's a very good question that should have been posed to DEFRA ministers at the time and to others. Why was not more being done? So that's how you grow the base.
Vote Tory, strangle your own turkeys.
I'm an Essex MP. We have some of the finest turkeys in Essex and in the east of England, all right? So don't be discouraged. Don't be disparaging about British turkey.
I don't know what rabbit hole we're going.
British produce. We want more fine British produce.
Let's talk about, you called them a bunch of pinko lefties that are running the country now.
I think I called them socialists.
Socialists, well, my words.
I might have used lefty as well.
Look, you left the country in a position that you slightly disagree on the details, but we are in this sort of weird halfway house of leaving the EU. A bit of the United Kingdom still lashed into the single market. You left the door ajar essentially, and Labour are now essentially looks like they're going to try and kick that door in, move closer to Europe. What are the Tories going to really do? Possibly work with Reform to stop Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves basically panicking when growth doesn't come and pivoting back to the EU.
So look, first of all, I'm going to be very political, obviously. They lied to the country. So they lied to the country and said...
You lied to the country. You can't accuse the other guy that lied to the country.
I did not lie to the country, Harry. You can't
take back control. Look at the graph.
Well, that points-based system means that the government of the day is in control. And it might be an inconvenient truth for you, but that's a fact,
An inconvenient truth, look at that.
The government of the day is in control of who comes in and out of this country.
In control, and they're thrown over the bloody borders.
So all sorts can be changed around the points-based immigration system.
Right,
there are caveats.
We're throttling a dead turkey.
So these are real facts. They are real facts. So Labour lied about Brexit. We've got to remember.
How?
They told the country during the general election last year that Brexit was safe.
Well, they're not going to rejoin the customs union, and they're not going to reintroduce freedom of movement.
So they'll find a back door.
What's the back door? Where is the back door?
So Starmer will be in Brussels. There'll be, So the interesting thing, actually, I mean, I do speak to a range of ambassadors and the EU ambassadors as well. They're all somewhat perplexed by this reset. But there is talk about greater collaboration.
Free movement for kiddies, students.
So exactly. Youth mobility schemes.
Youth mobility, that's
things of that nature.
So how are the Tories going to stop it?
I mean, this will be unpicking the democratic mandate of Brexit, and simply.
But how are you going to stop them doing
it? Well, we'll obviously hold them to account.
But how? You barely got enough MPs to fit in 2 coaches.
We're pretty robust, Harry, and we're pretty vocal. We've been
yeah, some of you are.
No, well, absolutely, it's our job. It is our job to actually say this is unacceptable. Invest in British students for a start, rather than just saying, bring other students over from EU member states.
What do you do though when they turn around and say, well, you didn't do any of that stuff. You didn't invest in British students.
Actually, that's not true.
You imported a load of foreign students.
Actually, that is not correct. That is simply not correct. Levelling up, why aren't they doing more? So even this sort of spurious growth agenda that has been, spoken about yesterday by the government, it's very much in the southeast. It's not looking at a nationwide plan for the country. They could have. There are blueprints in government, certainly from my time in government, around levelling up, investing more in our regions. They've got all their metro mayors, and yet they seem to sort of want to.
Well, we talked about this earlier.
They seem to want to just literally go, outside of the United Kingdom and say we need more to do with the EU, and that is not the answer. And the worry there as well. I know they've got a majority in Parliament.
Well, not quite a majority, a bloody great majority.
Well, we are where we are on that. But the reality is the minute they start trying to legislate, that is where we will be all over them.
How's Kemi doing?
Them. Look, she's our leader and she's got a mandate. She's got a democratic mandate.
That's not the biggest compliment I've ever heard. She's our leader.
She's doing well.
That's it.
She's doing well. As our leader, with a mandate, she was elected by our members to represent and lead our party. And the important thing is, she said, and this is incredibly important, there's new leadership. The party's got fresh management now, and we're going to be doing things differently.
And
we can't keep looking backwards, Harry. We have to look to the future.
I'd look sideways if I was you, because you're bleeding out to reform. Surely that's a warning sign on the dashboard. That
but they're not Conservatives.
They're not Conservatives?
They've got their own agenda.
They're right-wingers, though, aren't they? You must love some of that stuff.
Look, I can speak for myself in terms of what I like.
I know, but what's the difference between you and Rupert Lowe, or you and Richard Tice, and you and Nigel Farage?
Because I stand up for authentic Conservative values. And I know what we care about, and I know about how to deliver in government. And I just don't think, jumping onto populist bandwagons is always
Well, I don't know.
What
populist bandwagon do you disagree with Reform on?
Well, first of all, they're out to attack the Conservative Party. So on that basis,
they've got some ammunition though. Don't make me point at the graph again, but they've got a point, right?
Well, I think that's one aspect. They're not going to create jobs in our country.
Would you do a deal with Reform though? If it meant,
on what basis? They've been quite clear they want to exist to eradicate the Conservative Party.
Yeah, but they say that. But they did a deal in 2019, didn't they? They stood down their.
That's the past, Harry. We're looking ahead now.
Well, let's look at the future. If it's a difference between kicking this Labour government out that you say are a terrible bunch of pinkers.
Well, because people voted Reform, that's why we got the Labour government as well. Okay.
Well, you could argue the Conservatives split the Reform vote.
Well, I wouldn't, because I stood on my Conservative platform at the last election. I'm pretty robust in terms of.
I mean, the good fine people of Essex
voted Conservative.
A lot of them voted Reform as well, though.
Yeah, and we'll work hard.
What did your majority go down to?
And we'll work hard to get them back, Harry.
So no deal.
We will work hard to get them back. I can tell you that now. There are people in my constituency who are deeply unhappy, and by the way, they're losing their jobs because of this Labour government, and they know that Reform will not get them jobs back.
Would you serve in a Nigel Farage government?
I'm going to remain a Conservative. I'm a lifelong Conservative.
Would you serve in a Nigel Farage government?
Harry, I'm looking to the future, literally to rebuild our party, which is now changing, and I think that's the most important thing. Our country we've got to be out there as a serious opposition, and we are. And it's not just about literally speaking about other parties. I care passionately about my country and my party. I'm going to give you one more go. Which is why the answer is no, which is why I will always stand for the Conservative Party and speak up for Conservative values and beliefs.
So come 2028, 29, the Tories are still bumping around on 20%.
Harry,
20%.
I'm standing for the Conservative Party and the values and beliefs that I have always championed.
And you rule out doing any form of deal or any form of coalition between Reform and Tories.
You're speculating. I'm not even going to get into your hypothetical speculation.
I will. Come on, give me one hypothetical speculation.
I'm not going to at all.
Why?
This is all about rebuilding our party and actually putting a strong, solid Conservative proposition.
Why do you think the Tory party remains at barely 20% in the polls?
Well, we've lost the election for a start. We're rebuilding. Harry, we've got to rebuild, right?
But the right is split, right?
We have to rebuild, and we have to show that we are the ones that can deliver a prosperous future for our country.
And you're going to do it?
Of course we are.
You win the next election?
Of course we are.
Come on.
We are focused on getting rid of this awful Labour government, and we have to be.
But you're ruling out doing that with Reform.
We have to be the party of hope and opportunity all over again.
And Kemi is the person to do it?
Of course, she is the one that absolutely believes in turning us around.
You are very loyal to the team.
I'm a dedicated Tory, I can tell you that now, and I'm not going to be brought down by anyone that is going to keep on challenging the efficacy and integrity of Conservative values and beliefs.
One more go. You're going to apologise for that graph?
I've made it quite clear exactly why those numbers were high, and during that period, which also covers a pandemic, and also we did not mention this. I did not mention this at the time, but also the foreign students that have come to our country, and a lot of those numbers. If you looked at the detail, Harry, and I know you will look at the detail.
I'm a details guy, as you well know.
Of course, you like looking at statistics.
I love
statistics.
Post-pandemic,
there was a lot of international students that came back into the country who were not allowed to do their degrees.
So there's nothing the Tories got wrong on that graph.
So there's a lot that could be changed now. But that also means having an impact on perhaps even universities closing in this country, losing doctors and nurses in our NHS. That might be something you'd like to talk to your readers about and explain that to them.
Priti Patel, unapologetic to the end. Thank you for coming. Come back and tell us how it's all going. Thank you very much for coming. That's it for today. Remember to subscribe on YouTube at The Sun. You won't miss a thing. See you next week.